What do I think about Eddie Izzard trying to stand as a Labour MP for Brighton Pavilion? You're a bit pissed off about it yourself. Yeah, I massively disagree with Eddie Izzard standing in Brighton Pavilion. I think she shouldn't be doing it. But ultimately, I don't think that she'll win either the nomination, and even if she does win the nomination, I don't think she'll win the seat. Even though the councils moved across towards Labour when it came to the voting for the council elections, it's a different electorate. And also, the Brighton Pavilion wards have changed to make it slightly more green favourable because of the boundary changes. And also just, I think at that point, when it comes to that point, people will be so sick of Labour being awful, especially for the kind of person who was already voting for Caroline Lucas. You're not going to be the kind of person who's going to vote for Kid Starver's party, are you? So I do think that Greens will hold that seat, although the majority will be much, much, much reduced. I think it'll be a very slim majority, but I do think that the Greens will still hold that seat and Sian Berry will win. I also kind of think that Eddie Izzard probably makes it less likely that Labour will win the seat. I also am just kind of sick of Eddie Izzard using celebrity status as a reason for wanting to become a member of Parliament, rather than just having in the Labour Party someone from a Labour background. Obviously, I know that's never going to happen, right? All of the actual people from a Labour background are getting refused access to be able to be on the long list, let alone the short list, to be selected for being a Labour MP, right? We all know what happened to people like Lee Drennan. We all know what happened to people like Maurice MacLeod. We also saw Lauren Townsend. We all saw Greg Marshall, all of those interventions from Leader of the Opposition Office. So, even when it gets to that point, A, I don't think she'll make the shortlist. And B, even if she did make the shortlist, I think that the people from that constituency would want someone who's local, not someone trying to get a seat in Parliament for clout reasons from a completely different area of the country, using their celebrity status. I'm not like, no, that's silly. And also, why is a trans person like Eddie Izzard, why is she running in such a virulently transphobic party like the Labour Party? Like, what do you get out of having to share benches with people like Rosie Duffield and Wes Streeting? What potential political gain is she think she can wrangle there, other than personal clout and getting bored after running all those marathons? It seems completely pointless to me. And as far as progressives and pro-trans people are concerned, one Green MP is definitely better than one Eddie Izzard MP. Where they think they can work from the inside. I mean, again, it shows a lot of naivety from a bunch of Labour Party supporters who think that they have any potential kind of leverage as far as the PLP is concerned or the membership is concerned over what the leadership do or say. No, it's ruled by diktat. This is the central committee, right? Becoming an MP and being part of the PLP when you're massively outnumbered by people who have been specifically selected for their fealty to the grand leader, Sir Keir Starmer, right? The General Secretary Keir Starmer of the Central Committee of the Labour Party. You have no leverage here, and to think that you do is completely delusional. I can understand why people would have these delusions and why Eddie Izzard thinks that she can have some kind of future sway and or some say on public policy by becoming a member of Parliament. I get it. I can understand why she thinks that. I can understand how she thinks she might make a positive difference, but I don't think that will happen at all. I don't think that's the case in any way at all. All it will do, quite frankly, is give us more stupid TV debates about trans people. We'll have Eddie Izzard speaking about it, someone who transitioned particularly late in life, right, who has a completely different experience to a lot of trans people today. Not that I'm denigrating her trans experience, everyone's is unique, but if I'm gonna have a trans person represented in Parliament, I want a young person. I want someone who represents like the bulk of trans people in this country, which is the majority people under 40, right? The bulk of the trans community in this country is people under 40 with completely different experiences. And also, I just don't want to be in the Labour Party. I want them to be in a non-garbage party. I want them to be in one of the good parties. I want trans Green MPs, for example. That would be something that I would like. I mean, hopefully we'll get a Carla Denyer in Bristol Central, so we'll have an openly bisexual MP who is incredibly pro-trans, and that's far more important to me as far as the party affiliation and the person who's going to be there, an actual engineer with political experience who's a political party leader, rather than just a famous trans person becoming an MP to get the title and the clout. Seems like a bit of a waste to me. She'll be very shocked by the PLP. Yeah, she will be very shocked by the PLP. But again, she's been a Labour Party activist for years and years and years, right? So it's clear that, the Labour Party is part of her DNA, but clearly part of her DNA as the red team and the good guys. Like, when was the last time Eddie Izzard ever did trade union activism as far as the Labour movement is concerned, right? Maybe I've just not been paying attention, potentially. Because it's clear, I mean, I like Eddie Izzard as a person. She's fine. Like, she does good work. Clearly she has a lot of opinions that I agree with, but it does feel like team sports politics all over again. She could probably do more from the outside of Labour and as a millionaire, so experience is different, not the same as most trans people. Well, yeah, exactly. Her being a millionaire is another thing, right? Not just being a trans person, but a famous trans person who has a bunch of kind of class privilege associated with that as well. It's not really a great look as far as a prominent transgender politicians are concerned. It's bad enough that the existing transgender politician is someone with a criminal record who's in the Conservative Party. I believe Jimmy Wallace has a criminal record, right? Don't quote me on that. But, again, to have our 2 trans representatives in Parliament being one person who transitioned very late, who identified as a cross-dresser for the most of that time, right? And alongside somebody who had to take a step back from politics because she was caught dressing up in like the kind of stereotypical bad trans woman attire that you get from people who would be criticised by gender criticals as being AGP in like a car crash that she fled the scene from, if I remember that story correctly. Again, don't quote me on that. Hardly great representatives of trans people, and again, not representative of the trans community as a whole in this country. I mean, I think I agree with you, Solly. I'm getting big Paul Mason vibes from Eddie Izzard. Real big Paul Mason vibes. Just continue running for the clout of being an MP. I mean, maybe it's not clout chasing. Maybe it's rude of me to say that it's clout chasing. Maybe it's just a huge heap of naivety that on the part of both her and Paul Mason, where they think they can have some kind of grand political change and political influence by becoming a member of Parliament, when really most of it, unless you're on the front bench or you're part of some kind of powerful group as far as Parliament is concerned, most of your influence is just doing constituency surgeries and giving interviews on the TV. And if you're already a celebrity like Paul Mason is as a newscaster and as Eddie Izzard is as a comedian, then surely you can have that influence by getting TV interviews regardless, because you're already famous. You don't need the platform of being an MP to be able to influence people politically. Especially if you're Paul Mason, you literally used to work on Newsnight. You've already had plenty of experience and plenty of exposure as a political actor without needing to be a member of Parliament, when the Labour Party should be a vehicle with which we get genuine working people's voices put into Parliament to be able to elevate them to a higher standing they otherwise would have had, rather than taking already famous people and then giving them a cushy job at £80,000 a year. It's the same reason why even the people that I like in the Labour Party at the moment, I disagree with them standing as MPs, right? So the person who beat out Maurice McLeod after he got removed from the long list in Camberwell and Peckham is Miatta Farnborough, and I think she's great. I think the work that she does for the New Economics Foundation is fantastic. She's a real proper, like, post-Keynesian social democrat who does the kind of, progressive economic policy that I actually genuinely want to see. But she's not going to be a shadow cabinet member or a cabinet member when it comes to crafting policy as far as the Labour front bench are concerned, when they do get into power, because that will happen, they will win the next election. I think she would have done much better work continually being a pundit and staying in the New Economics Foundation, where she's already famous and already has reach and already has clout. That space in Camberwell and Peckham, actually, quite frankly, was better off served not being Miatta Farnborough or Maurice McLeod. It shouldn't have been either of them.
Neoliberalism.
No just laser, no just laser, no just laser.
Thank you for the resub, Jim. It's been much appreciated. Miatta Farnborough has all of the platform that she needs as the literal head of a progressive think tank, that she doesn't need to be an MP to influence policy or to influence politics or to be able to speak positively, rhetorically in the public eye, because she's been on Question Time multiple times. She gets interviewed on Politics Live. She's been on LBC. She's done all of these things from her existing position as the head of a think tank. She doesn't need to be an MP to do that, just like Maurice McLeod doesn't need to be an MP to do that when he's already a councillor and already writes things in The Guardian in his position as a journalist, when we could have a genuine union organiser in that position outside of either of them. But of course that's not happening in Keir Starmer's Labour, where it's just a bunch of political yes men, party staffers, and people that they know from the political sphere, like pollsters or whatever it might be, who then get put into these positions because Keir Starmer knows he'll get party loyalty out of them, and that's all that matters when it comes to MP selection now. We have the Central Committee who just want party loyalty from yes men who are going to continually vote through whatever draconian policy that they want to put through, regardless of the consequences and regardless of their own morality. Look at Keir Mather, for example. Look at the kind of things that he was saying. in the article from the Times the other day, where, you know, he's automatically just taken up every single party line on the 2-child benefit cap on trans people, for example, when I've been told by people on Twitter that his feed on Twitter before he nuked it, before being an MP, was very pro-trans, and now he's speaking to the Murdoch press about how women are like his sister and his mum, adult human females assigned at birth or whatever it might be, and that there are people who have gender dysphoria and they should be treated with respect, but, you know, they're not the gender that they say they are, for example, or that they identify as. It's clear that Keir Mather is just yet another yes man, from private school to university to office staffer for Wes Streeting to partner with the Confederation of British Industry. You know, the people who are literally the enemies of workers. They are the bourgeois. They're the ones who pay the wages of the workers and keep those down within the class conflict in this country. And there's a man of the Labour Party who's their bloody lackey becoming an MP and becoming a yes man for Keir Starmer, right? I have no problem with his age. I have a problem with the fact that he is no business being in the Labour movement. Again, just like I don't think that people like Eddie Izzard and Miatta Fahnbulleh have any reason to become members of Parliament, just like Paul Mason. And, you know, I think similarly of Maurice MacLeod. Yet people like Lee Drennan, who's been long-time party activists who are members of the Labour movement for a very, very long time, who have had boots on the ground within the movement for a very, very long time, but haven't got their own personal platform. And people like Lauren Townsend, who unionised her workplace, being barred from standing because they might step out of line from the grand dictator Sir Keith Starmer on policy prescriptions. It just shows how completely devoid of moral responsibility the current leadership is. And it just shows why the Labour Party should not be worth any progressive support. And not just because their policy is conservative and monetarist and in no way left-wing. It's because they are not democratic and they do not pay any attention to democracy. They are completely illiberal in their rejection of democracy, in a very kind of liberal way as well. I've talked a lot about this on this channel, about kind of this innate kind of liberal authoritarianism, where they are kind of genuine Fukuyamaists in their belief in the end of history and that their ideology is the correct one, that they believe they should be able to override democracy to be able to expunge anyone who disagrees with them from the democratic process, whether it be internal party Labour democracy, where they believe that only good candidates should be allowed to stand. But of course, who do they believe is a good candidate? People who agree with them, who agree with their liberalism, whereas leftists and Marxists and people like that who are, you know, to the left of liberalism, who do not believe in, you know, all of liberal values and everything that they agree with, they should be expunged from the democratic process within the political Labour Party as well. And a bunch of these other people are just like, well, we can't change from first past the post. We can't have proportional representation because that would allow people like New Reform UK and the BNP to get in. I'm like, yeah, it will do. People support them. Welcome to democracy. These people disagree with you and you believe that just because these people are not so enlightened as to agree with your own personal policy prescriptions, these people should be completely shut out of the democratic process by adhering to whatever the current political and electoral system it is at the moment. And that's something liberals genuinely believe. And if you speak to these people like, well, I would support proportional representation, but I can't allow Reform UK to gain seats. I'm like, they get support. They should be allowed to have seats in Parliament. Simple as that. Who am I to say that they're wrong categorically so they should be excluded from the discussion? There is a time and a place where, you know, discussion should be stratified based upon the veracity of the points being made. But democracy is not one of those places. Everyone should get a voice in a democracy, but of course, middle-class liberals believe that people that they disagree with should be shut out of the democratic process altogether. It's an incredibly authoritarian and a kind of incredibly self-important way of viewing the democratic process. And I think if you're a leftist, you have to be a radical believer in democracy. What is the main concern of leftists nowadays? It's the lack of democracy within capitalism, within our capitalist lives. Why do we believe in democratic workplaces, for example? I saw people saying UKIP would have got 80 seats in 2015 with PR. And I was like, yeah, so what? It sucks, but that's the votes they got. That's the they get the seats. And ironically, UKIP getting 80 seats in 2015 probably would have meant that we never would have gotten Brexit. Like, the reason we got Brexit was because under first past the post, UKIP had more influence on policy by pushing the Conservative Party to try and stop hemorrhaging votes to them than they ever would have gotten by trying to finagle some kind of coalition agreement, which is hilarious to me. that UKIP being shut out of the democratic process was how they managed to get their policy passed. In the same way that this is exactly what the left should be doing by refusing to vote Labour and say, well, if you don't court our votes, we're going to make sure that you have to stop the votes hemorrhaging to the Green Party. Literally identical things should be being done on Labour by Green voters as UKIP did on the Conservative Party. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.